It was John Lennon who said, "Life is what happens when we're busy making other plans." And it is so true. We make plans to do something related to our dreams, but something else happens that gets in the way of that. Resilience, which is our topic of the month, that I have the pleasure of initiating for you today, is what gets us through that, back on the path, hopefully. Our definition of resilience is the ability to face and handle life's challenges, whether everyday disappointments or extraordinary disasters. Resilience is what brought me here to the UUFD, actually. Unbeknownst to me at the time, having a social network is one facet on the diamond of resilience. I did not want to face prostate cancer alone with just Chris and my family. This community came through for me. Whether you knew it or not, reread the opening words of number 448. We gather this hour as a people of faith in celebration of the life we share together. Our fellowship is a part of my resilience, then and now, and I thank you for it. Resilience is what gets us through the challenges facing us. You have probably heard that one of the 12-step mottos of Alcoholics Anonymous is one day at a time. When you break resilience up into doable chunks, it makes it easier to focus. This could also be seen as being mindfully present, not thinking too far in the future, but just dealing with the here and now. Getting through childhood is a big test of resilience, but kids are real masters. To me, as a child, if whatever happened to me was not the worst, I would take comfort in that, because there always could be something worse. Resilience is a means of survival. Chris and I like to watch the PBS show, Finding Your Roots, by Henry Louis Gates on Tuesday evenings. What always strikes me and the guests on his show is how much our ancestors had to go through so that we could be here today. Our ancestors' resiliency resulted in us, and we can honor and learn from that. Our prayer today, the legacy of caring, number 666, said that this common world I love anew as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity in an inhumane world courses through my veins. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring. These words by Thandeka mean to me that we survive as our ancestors survived, and we pass that resiliency forward to future generations. Resiliency, to me, is an element of our evolution also. There are many things that support this, many sayings that support this. You've all heard, what does not kill me makes me stronger, right? Or a broken bone heals stronger than it was before. For most of us, getting through a crisis or just overcoming an obstacle makes us more confident, wiser, and able to handle the future winds that blow our way with greater will and strength. John Kabat-Zinn, the developer of mindfulness-based meditation or stress reduction, describes our strengthened capacities for resilience this way. We all accept that no one controls the weather. Good sailors learn to read it carefully and respect its power. They will avoid storms if possible, but when caught in one, they know when to take down the sails, batten down the hatches, drop anchor, and ride things out, controlling what is controllable and letting go of the rest. To put things in terms that are pertinent right now because it's winter, what do we do to handle the cold? Do we go out barefoot in shorts to get the paper in the morning? I hope not. No, we armor up, so to speak, by putting on many layers of clothes with hats and gloves. It's a habit we get into. Resilience takes practice, and we learn by experience. But challenges are not always expected. For that, we must have resilience as an attitude. Above the door at the Stanford Research Institute are the words, "We have not solved your problems. In fact, we have more questions than when we started. But we believe we are confused at a higher level." Now, I'm not exactly sure what they mean by higher level, but it probably has to do with taking the problem and going upstream with it to its source. It is something that I tell my engineering students for troubleshooting a problem. You have to go upstream from where you found the issue. Meaning, for instance, if the signal is not at the output where it should be, go to the previous stages to find where it is. And then at least you know an area where it is lost, and you can focus on that. One could also see a higher level as a spiritual domain also. I doubt that is what the Research Institute was thinking about it, but I see it because I believe in miracles or what appear to others as coincidences. But whether you believe in God or not, we all have a higher self that we can tap into. I never cease to be amazed at what happens when we tap into that, whether it is through prayer, meditation, yoga, or some other means of going within. Brené Brown, in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, has studied why some people can cope with stress and trauma in a way that allows them to move forward in their lives, and why people appear more affected and stuck. And she has come up with some suggestions based on her interviews. She says, if you look at the current research, here are 5 of the most common factors of resilient people. 1, they are resourceful and have good problem-solving skills. 2, they are more likely to seek help, friends, relatives, professionals. 3, they hold the belief that they can do something that will help them manage their feelings and to cope. 4, they have social support available to them. This is where the UU or any church plays a special role. My comment. And 5, they are connected with others, such as family or friends. Of course, there are more factors depending on the researchers, but these are the big ones. I would also add prayer, dream, and think positive. Linda Graham, who wrote the book Bouncing Back, also has some advice. Developing and maintaining resilience requires that we continue to cultivate qualities and behaviors that support it. We can choose to make resilience a central organizing principle of our lives, not just an interesting hobby or an occasional lifesaver, but the core that everything else aligns around, that increases our happiness and well-being. My title, Bend Like a Willow, is a metaphor for how we can deal with resilience. If you look at the willow tree, like most trees, it is grounded in the earth with its roots, and its long, flexible branches are held by its trunk. Unlike many trees, however, the branches tend to move more, and they don't fight the wind, but go with it. This makes the willow trees less susceptible to breakage in a storm. By flexing with the wind, they take a shape of least resistance, which puts less strain on the trunk and roots. I like the willow and its go with the flow metaphor because it reminds me of Aikido and its means of defense, which is also to join with the direction of the attacking force. But applying Aikido is not just for physical attacks. It can be applied mentally as well. I now would like to ask anyone here or on Zoom for their thoughts on resilience. I put something on our internal website asking if there was anyone who would care to share or have a thought. And if you would like to, please come up to the podium or put something in the chat. We can read it. Any volunteers? Yes, good.
I'm Beth. I don't know if this is a story of resilience, but I think it is. Zeke and I went to the Hopkins Park yesterday, and we're going sledding. And we started out on the small hill, and he was very afraid, even though he'd done it before. It had been a year, and a year is a very long time when you're 7 years old. So we eventually worked our way up to the small hill. We went down several times with him on my lap, and then he eventually went down on his own. And then he wanted to go to the big hill. But then it's pretty big. And so he looked at the hill and he said, "Mommy, why don't you go on your own? And then you can tell me what it was like." And so, oh boy, I didn't want to do that, but I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go. I climbed halfway up this hill. I may as well. So I went down it and I said, "It's not icy. It's smooth. It's good. Let's go." And he said, "Okay, yeah, I want to do it." And we got to the top and he sat on the sled and he stood up again and he sat on the sled and he stood up again. And one of the dads who was there next to us said, he kind of looked over, "Should I give you a push?" And so next time Zeke was on my lap, I said, "Yeah, just give us a push." And so we just went down this big hill and he was going, "Oh no, oh no." And then halfway down, he goes, "This is fun." And we went again and again and again. And we probably went, I eventually said, "It's dinner time. We have to go." I stopped him, but it was such a good, I think, learning experience. He was so afraid. And, I could have said, "Let's just walk down the hill. We don't have to push ourselves. We don't have to be uncomfortable. We don't have to overcome something and be resilient." But instead, I thought, I gave the dad the nod and we tried it. And I think that was just a great experience for him. And he went sledding again today with his friends, which is why he isn't here.
I'm Danica, and I thought the Ukrainian mention of resilience is probably the most amazing spectacle of resilience that I've seen in a long time. But this week, I was really struck by another group of people who have really had to be resilient over the past few years, and that's our teachers that are in our schools. I work in education, not in teaching, but for a nonprofit. And I've just seen so many stories of what teachers have had to deal with. There's been a lot of behavioral issues with children coming back after being absent for a long time, missing out on a lot of critical socialization. Fourth grade teachers were having kids come in with kind of the social emotional level of second graders on top of the learning gaps that they are coming with. And I've seen this behavior firsthand at my grandson's school. It's bad. And just the teachers who have stuck with it and continue to try to teach these kids and manage these classrooms, which is no easy task, is a really good example of resilience in my book.
Well, thank you, Beth and Danica. I don't see anything on the chat. Is there anyone else? So, what's that? So thanks for your comments. In closing, I think simply that resilience gets you from who you once were to who you are now. It pads the spaces between the challenges. And that reminds me of a Japanese art called kintsugi, which means golden repair. And what kintsugi is if you break a jar, they take a broken jar and they repair it by putting it back together, but instead of throwing it away. And it repairs it with gold in the spaces or other precious metals filling the cracks, which results in a much more interesting vessel, which is also more valuable. So I'll leave the interpretation to you about how this art relates to resilience. But ultimately, I think the jar is a metaphor for us as vessels of light and love. Amen, and blessed be.